Welcome back to Unleashed at Work and Home, the podcast dedicated to helping pet professionals learn what to do and what not to do so that they can continue making a difference in the world without burning themselves out. Today, my guest is a very dear friend of mine, Victoria Schade, and I asked her to come talk to me about creativity. And the reason is because Victoria is just awesome in diving into all sorts of different pursuits. She's written 2 nonfiction books about dog training. She's written 2 novels. One is published and one is coming out next spring that feature dogs, but are not about dog training. They're about the characters' lives themselves. She's certified to teach Bollywood X fitness dance classes, and her home is just an explosion of visual delights. There's just all sorts of stuff to see all over the place. So when I think creativity, I think Victoria. So that's who I asked to come join me today. Thanks so much, Vic.
What an introduction. Wow. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. So for people like you who creativity seems to come naturally to, talking to people like me who sort of go like, I want to be creative, but sometimes I get stuck. What do you think the differences are?
I think it's a willingness just to let go and not be afraid and not worry about potential judgment.
Oh, well, there's our problem right there. That's me.
Well, I was kind of clued in with you. I kind of knew that the judgment thing that lives within you, but I think it lives within a lot of us. That feeling like, well, if I don't create something perfect right out of the gate, then why create anything at all? Mm-hmm. And that's so limiting because even your mistakes matter. Even your mistakes can bring you to the beauty that you're seeking. So if we can get out of our heads and just let it flow, I think a lot more people would be willing to dive in.
That is really good advice. So tell me a little bit about some of your mistakes that have helped you move forward.
Oh gosh. Well, writing is never a linear process. So mistakes are a part of it. You know, you start off with the book, you think like, this is what I'm going to write about. And you write it or begin it. And then you find out for some reason that maybe that's not what you're going to write about. So I have a very recent example as of last week. My 3rd novel is in the works. I'm about 10,000 words into it. And I was talking with my editor and, I'm pitching her like, this is my idea. And I'm really excited. And I've got every little bit of it mapped out. And she's like, great, but I'm not sure that's the right direction. I'm not sure that's where we need to go with this next book. So basically everything that I had written, or most of it, is going to be scrapped. Oh, wow. And I'm okay with that, though. I am totally fine with it because, as I keep saying, I feel like I'm a bottomless well of words. I have a lot of words to give, so I'm just going to give more. But that's what happens with writing is you have to be open to the fact that what you put down on paper the first time is probably not what you're going to end up with at the end of the process. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, I think that takes a little time to get used to. I mean, everyone encourages you to write the cruddy first draft and just like get it out and then come back later and revise. But for many of us, me for sure, we edit as we go, and that slows everything down. I know it's a bad system, and I still catch myself doing it.
But is it a bad system? I mean, that's something I think people really need to think about because I also edit as I go, and that's a huge no-no in the writing world. But I'm like, why? What's wrong with that? Like, why slavishly write these words and then be like, oh no, I wanted to change X, Y, Z. Just who made these rules? That's what I want to know. Who made these rules and why do we have to abide by them? Damn it.
Awesome. There we go. There's creativity right there. Rules, they're out. So tell me what role creativity plays for you, like in your daily life.
Oh gosh, I think it's so woven into what I do. And that's everything across the board. I think even during my dog training days, when I was doing that full time, you have to be creative when you're presented with a problem and you have people standing there going, looking at their watch, like, fix it. What's the answer? You have to be able to just, come on, think of something, pull out like everything you've been learning all these years and present a solution. And sometimes they are creative because every household is different. Yeah. So I think kind of getting trial by fire in that sense, because I did private lessons. Yeah, I used to liken it to being a sleuth. When you're doing that fact-finding portion of meeting a client, you really have to dig through all of the information they're giving you whether it's the truth or an embellished version of the truth or not the truth, to figure out what you're dealing with. And I think that takes a lot of creativity.
Yes. Yes, I agree with that. So the dancing is interesting to me, your Bali X dancing, because I do know that moving the body is a great way to get your brain some downtime and some time to think differently. Have you found that to be true?
I don't know of a direct parallel with the dancing. I love it. I absolutely just dancing means so much to me, but moving in terms of just going for a walk. So if I'm feeling a little bit stuck, obviously I have two very eager walking companions that are like, let's go, let's get out there. So it's really helpful for me just to step away from whatever I'm working on, take a walk with the dogs. And a lot of times I will come up with things as I'm walking. Just like a bumper sticker gave me a plot line for one of my books. So you just never know. There's actually two bumper stickers that had nothing to do with each other. I'll tell you what they were: surf and nurse. I'm like, okay, who, what, surf, nurse? That's really weird. It sounds good together. Storyline.
Now I'm so curious.
That's all you're going to get. Well,
That's all. Is that book number 3? Or is that the stuff that the editor just cut and left on the floor?
No, because, I think I embellished my story a little bit. Not everything is lost from those 10,000 words. There are definitely storylines that I can salvage. And the surf nurse, very, very, very minor storyline, probably can be saved. So stay tuned to find out how that figures in.
That'll be in book number 3. And book number 2 is written and at the publishing house.
Yep, it's in edits right now. It's called Who Rescued Who, and it's coming out with Berkeley in March of 2020.
How exciting.
It's bad English, though. I realized after the fact, like, people are like, oh, it's whom. But we all in the dog world know who rescued who, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's another one of those rules that's evolving.
Now
you
rules.
They as a singular. You could not use they as a singular when we were growing up, but now you can. What they think as an individual. So it became the gender neutral. So same thing. Who rescued who rescued whom has kind of faded out of our lexicon a little bit.
It sounds a little snotty too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly not the muddy paws on the blue jeans kind of effect. So
that's exactly right.
So when I think about creativity, I think that it has so many benefits in terms of sort of flexibility and problem solving, just a different way of looking at situations. And it can provide, I don't know, like a sense of purpose and accomplishment and pride when you've worked through something in a creative way. So what would you say would be some of the benefits that you personally have experienced from creativity?
Well, I feel like it's the foundation of everything I do. So working through problems with creativity, I can't even separate it really, because it's like breathing for me. And I think,
which is why you're the one who was invited to talk about creativity today.
But I'm not being helpful because I'm like, well, it just is. And it happens. So I need to give some concrete examples or help. And I've just lost my thread. So refresh me. See, I'm so creative that my brain can't hold on to a single thought for very long.
What are the benefits for you of being so creative?
Because I get to use something that is joyful to me. Creation is life. So to be able to use that in my everyday world is kind of a dream. They say, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life, which is bullshit, by the way. But I guess it's related to that. I don't know if that answers your question.
It kind of does. So you've got a career where you've carved it out creatively in your own way. What about for people who have a job, say working in an animal hospital, where they feel like their job has set parameters? How could they spark creativity there?
Oh, wow. Well, I think social media is, we all demonize social media, but there are so many wonderful ways to spark creativity through social media. So, for example, if you're trying to, get more attention on your hospital, like even if you're not tasked with that specific role, look at some of the other veterinary hospitals that are doing really hysterical and amazing stuff and learn from that. Like there's one account that I follow that I love, Scarf the Office Cat. First shout out of the interview. This flat-faced cat that has so much attitude. And I'm like, I want to know everything about this animal hospital now that has this mascot cat who greets everyone, who's chill with dogs. So the point is, way off track. But, looking outside of what your defined space is and maybe looking, like I said, looking towards social media as a way to figure out how you could maybe bring that into your own practice or your own role within the practice.
I was looking at a website the other day and reading bios of the team, and one of the veterinary technicians was also listed as our staff photographer. She's always running around and taking photos. And I had noticed previously that the photos on this website were awesome. And I thought, and now I know, because our staff photographer, who's always running around taking photos, they have to be hers. Like, she's not credited with each of them under them, but you definitely could see that this animal hospital had really nice imagery, but it was absolutely real life imagery too. It was the staff holding actual patients, doing real work. So that struck me as an example of really pretty good creativity in a work environment. But if we aren't artsy, if we don't take pictures or paint or dance, how can we be creative in our lives?
Oh, these are such stumpers, woman. How can we be creative in our lives? Maybe journaling. I think because you're doing that for yourself, it's such a wonderful outlet if you can let go of that inner voice. But in journaling, not specifically just words on a page, you can do pictures, you can, do little mini vision boards, but anything that you're not going to feel judged, but it allows you to express yourself in a way that you don't normally do. And there are so many benefits to taking everything that's up here in your brain and just spewing it and letting it go. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that everyone can do, regardless of whether or not they consider themselves creative. And they might discover like, oh, I'm more creative and awesome than I realized.
Yes. And when you were saying that, I had two ideas that seemed related to that topic of journaling. The first is, you said if you can silence that voice in your head. And one very interesting exercise is to have a conversation with that voice on paper. So the voice says, oh, you're not good enough. And then you say, well, what does good enough look like? And then the voice is, it's perfection and it's acting like this person or that person. And then you can kind of have this two-way conversation, which is very creative. And the second is, I came across a book called Sketch Notes, I believe. I'll find it and put a link in the show notes. But it talks about using journaling in both a visual and word-based way. And so little doodles in the margins and things like that. And our brains are really wired for image. So if we can have mind maps or just a doodle of a mountain when you're looking at a struggle, or a doodle of, a lock when you're feeling stuck, those can help us shift too. So I think that related to your concept of journaling could be a helpful thing for some people.
Plus, as a side note, there are so many gorgeous journals out there. Oh my gosh. I mean, and you can get one for under $5 at your local craft store. And that's half the fun, picking out the goods. Get a really nice pen, get a big, beautiful journal, and don't be afraid to put that first word down. It's so daunting to look at those empty pages in that beautiful book. But just go. You can rip it out if you hate it, but don't rip it out. I give you permission, but I don't.
Yeah. Permission granted and withdrawn.
Yes.
If you acted very fast. I did see somewhere where an artist said, I think the phrase was waste art supplies, use them up.
And beautiful.
I've had sort of the idea of like, oh, it's the beautiful journal, like, oh, I don't know. And she's like, no, that's not what they're for. They're for using them up, waste them, go crazy, use your fancy markers, go ahead. Yeah. And I thought, there you go. That's a good idea. So yes, I think that we are often feeling less creative because in the times that we could be creative, we're so tired that we just sit down and go to numbing activities, like let's watch Game of Thrones.
And be disappointed.
So do you find that? Do you have to carve out time to allow your brain to wander and spiral in different directions? Or is it because it's so natural for you that you don't send yourself down the rabbit hole of numbing behavior?
Oh, sister, I numb. Let me tell you, I numb. But it's such a part of what I do every day, whether it's working with a dog at the shelter or, working on the next novel, that I can't turn it off. But I think that's a point too, though. If you open your eyes to all the things that can inspire you, it doesn't have to be this big, like, I took a hike and looked across the vista and the thought came. It doesn't have to be that. That's great when it happens, but it can be an overheard conversation in a grocery store. One of my favorites is this old couple. The woman says to the man, honey, what's our cookie situation? I love that. I love those people. And can't you just make a story about these old people worrying about their cookie situation? Which I often worry about. But
that is a legitimate worry.
Cookie and cupcake situation. I only have one cupcake left. Critical mass right now. But music too, the lyrics can be so inspirational. Art. So it's not something you have to sit down and be like, now I'm going to find a way to be inspired. Just open yourself up to all of the inspiration around you. And you won't have to feel like it's this endeavor to undertake. It'll just be something that is natural.
Awesome. I do think changing your environment in some way or being aware of your environment can be very eye-opening for creativity and just finding different things. So if someone is feeling judgmental on the subject of creativity, like I'm not good at this, what would you say would be helpful thoughts for them to move into it?
Well, I love what you said about the conversation. So define good, ask yourself, rather than just accepting these thoughts that come into your head, question them. What is good and who said? I think that's a really important question to ask yourself. Who told me that I'm not good at this? Because when we're kids, sky's the limit. You make it and it's awesome, unless you had a really crappy teacher who said, the sky is blue and the grass is green. But somewhere along the line, I think that beautiful expressiveness breaks.
Yeah.
So it's important to ask yourself, why do I think this way? And is it true?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a really important question. And what does it matter? Unless you're going to be paid for what you're creating, it doesn't matter if it's a cat that looks like a cow. Just do it for the joy of doing it.
I think leaning back into the joy of doing it is hard sometimes, especially for the people who did absorb some of those messages. Mm-hmm. I read a while back that if you ask kindergartners, are you good at drawing? Your odds are like 85, 90%. They're like, yes, me, I'm good at drawing. And if you ask second graders, are you good at drawing? It's way down. It's like 30%. It's low because by then they've learned to compare and look at someone else's paper and see. And so they absorb the message on their own, but they also absorb it from praise other people are getting. Like, oh, you just did such a beautiful job on your drawing, Victoria. And then someone's peeking and like, oh, no one said that about mine. And that joy of just doing it just to do it starts to fizzle away. So we have to lean into it and create it for ourselves. I think that like, I'm going to do this anyway, just for me, and try not to judge it. And that honestly is a lesson that I'm trying to relearn in adulthood because I lost it very early on. Really good at judging the output of my creative stuff. And I loved art as a kid, but I never liked what I created. So that idea of, is it good and who's it for? And what's the purpose? All of those questions are not really relevant. Yeah. Was it fun? Did you enjoy it? Those are the relevant questions.
And I think creating, like if you're feeling a little bit blocked, if you create for someone you love, and again, not a grand thing, just a sketch or a doodle to say, I'm thinking of you and this is something I made for you. That might help get you over the hump too, because the response you're going to get when you give something with love, that can help bolster when you're feeling questioning about your abilities. Like, for example, my husband can't draw. I would never say that in front of him. I don't want to squash his creativity. But over the years, he's made me little like representations of us, stick people. But oh my God, they're the most beautiful and adorable and wonderful things. And I love them. So I'm not judging that they're stick people. I love the fact that he captured this moment for us. So long way to say, create for someone you love and you will be rewarded for it. And it might help bolster you.
Yeah, that's very true. Because you don't judge someone else's stick figures the way you judge your own stick figures. So you're like, look, here's a message. Right. I read a book recently that had stick figures all the way throughout. And my first thought was like, I'm surprised you would do it that way. And my second thought was like, I totally understand every point on every page with each of these stick figures. Like, let it go. That's awesome. Who needs anything more than that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a way of capturing your ideas as they come to you? Do you record your ideas?
I do. I was going to bring it to show you a visual. Well, depends on if people are watching or listening. But yes, I have a couple different notebooks over the years that I've just filled with everything we've talked about, ripped out pictures from magazines. I have a coaster from a pub in England that I took notes on. And then just all the notes I take as I work on whatever I'm working on. And drawings. I do sketch too. So yeah, definitely. I'm very analog, old school. Like, I don't use stuff on my phone. I have a paper calendar. I'm a Luddite. Proudly.
That's good. It's whatever works for you kind of thing. Do you ever have trouble going back through and finding what you're looking for?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. It's there's no organization, but that's an exercise in creativity itself, because I'll be like, oh, look at these 3 book ideas I wrote down 3 years ago that I forgot about. Okay. Not the worst thing. And there are little, I have done like, here's a bread twist tie that's functioning as a bookmarker. If I need to, I will, or I'll fold a page or something, but there is no organization.
So fancy. A bread twist tie, huh?
It worked.
I'm sure it did. Nothing has to be fancy to work.
I was actually I took that notebook with me because I was doing a presentation to a classroom of children about how to get ideas for stories. And this giant notebook, I'm like, oh gosh, how am I going to find this? Because there were a lot of pages folded over. So hence the twist tie in front of a classroom full of very rowdy kids, and it worked.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit more about that. How old were the kids and what did you guys talk about?
Oh gosh, we talked about ways of generating ideas through things that you already love. So this is not my concept, completely stolen, but if you have this desire that you want to write something, but you're not sure what about, or you want to create whatever, think about things that inspire you and make a list. So you can do books that have inspired you. I did movies, like I did devices in movies, plot devices that I like The Fish Out of Water. Or, set in an English countryside. Oh, guess what? The next book is both of those things. I love people that don't look like they can dance that wind up being able to dance. One of my favorite things, like the big burly guy who can totally rock it out. So none of this stuff is related, but it's just a way to think about what inspires you and what you like, and then maybe spinning it off into a completely different idea.
And did the kids write stories while you were there, or just generate ideas? Or
they've started to write basic ideas. There was a lot of Pokemon, but it was adorable. I mean, we helped each other. We took a couple ideas and then we built stories based on these ideas that everyone voted on. I think there was a cupcake theme. I do not take credit for that. There was a cupcake theme. Yeah, and it was just really beautiful to watch everyone coming together in support of someone else's idea that maybe didn't necessarily inspire them, but it got their juices flowing. So yeah, it was a really fun exercise.
It is fun to have those conversations. They spark all sorts of ideas for people, because just hearing someone talk about anything, our brains are wired to come up with like, oh, this, and this could happen too. Right.
Yeah. We are all storytellers.
Yes.
It's silenced within us, but we are by nature.
Yeah, it is fascinating, the research on story and how our brains are really wired for it, and that we're so drawn to story. And if we could get a little bit better at figuring out how to use that well in our daily lives, I think it could be really empowering for all of us, as you're doing.
Well, thank you.
So any other thoughts that you would share with people for creativity?
Any other thoughts? I think just my main premises are being open to whatever thoughts come into your head and chewing on them a little bit and not judging yourself and finding your outlet. Maybe it is dance. Maybe it's expressive movement, putting on the music and just letting yourself move, or the doodling or writing or poetry. We haven't even talked about poetry.
We haven't. Do you do poetry too?
I don't write. Well, actually, I lie. I write poetry about my dog's teeth.
About your dog's teeth?
Yeah, because she has an underbite that brings out the creativity in me. The last poem was an ode to Olive's mouth, M-O-U-F. I think it goes like this. I would like you to meet these 4 little teeth, 2 in the front and 4 underneath. That's it. That's the poem. Because she's got 2, like,
it's very Ogden Nash.
Yes, and E.E. Cummings, no capitalization. Oh, I also wrote one about finding your dog pooping when you don't have a poop bag, called Canine Sushi, and it was oh
dear.
Because I used chopsticks. Oh gosh, what was this one? This one was funny. I don't remember. I'm so pumped. But it basically was about.
Can you email it to us and we'll put it into the show notes?
I will. I definitely
Canine
will.
Sushi might just have to be. I'm not sure that our lives can go on until we.
Well, spoiler alert. We've all been there, right? Your dog poops and you don't have a poop bag. So what do? You use whatever you can find. So the sushi part was I used 2 sticks, like chopsticks, to get the poop to the garbage can. That's Canine Sushi. But I will find it and send it to you. So yeah, poetry doesn't have to rhyme, doesn't have to be, 545 or 575, whatever. What is that? Haiku. But yeah, that's another way to just get thoughts out of head and out into the world.
That is awesome. So if people wanted to learn more about you and the work you do, where can they do that?
You want to watch my dog train right now? Hi. What's this? So right now we're having a bully stick issue, and that's I'm going to bark, so you let go of the bully stick, and I'll steal it when you go bark.
That's a good plan.
It usually works. Hi, cutie. Okay, so people can find more out about me on victoriaschade.com. My books are available everywhere. So this is Life on the Leash. It's a novel, and it's fun. And I've got Bonding with Your Dog. This, again, Colleen and I can see each other. This is I don't have the English version.
You do not have the English version there.
No, this is the German version with the world's strangest picture, worth seeing. And then I have Secrets of a Dog Trainer as well. And then people can find me at Twitter, at Victoria Schade. Instagram for the moment is at Life on the Leash, but that's about to change. So follow me while you can. And what else is there? Facebook is at Victoria Schade Author. Lots of dog pictures.
Lots of dog pictures, as they should be. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what we need. Well, it's been so fun talking to you today about creativity. I have really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. It's always great to catch up with you.
Unleashed at Work and Home is all about finding practical, sustainable ways to apply positive psychology to improve the lives of veterinarians, veterinary nurses, and other animal care professionals. Protect yourself from burnout and compassion fatigue by listening to the podcast, participating in a workshop, or scheduling private, confidential coaching with me. Details about all of the programs can be found at colleenpilar.com.